All right, what's going on, y'all? We're going right to this one. I don't know how this is gonna go because I don't have nothing written down. I got some time. I figured I'd share. So if you, I saw. Here we go. I saw a interview with The Rock recently, and he spoke at a conference, and I really think understanding this will set so many people free. It resonates with me. He talked about like when in the world of Hollywood or acting or, what's it called? Wrestling. He called it like an animal or a beast or a machine, right? Like this idea that it'll like eat you up and spit you out if you're not ready for it, right? You look at the music industry. You see what's going on with everything with Diddy and all the people that were connected to animal, right? It's a beast. It'll eat you up and spit you out. No Diddy. The world of politics, right? The divisiveness, right? The world of business, right? And the, just the money hungry. I mean, there's. So here's the thing: when we have a couple of choices, right? We see like, man, there's this freaking look at this industry. It's like everyone who goes into music comes out weird, right? Or everyone that goes into politics comes out like divisive, or everyone that goes into business comes out money hungry, right? It's like these arenas or these industries that are dangerous if you're not rooted. I think the challenge is if you have a choice, you either sit on a sideline and watch everyone tear each other apart, or you say, I'm gonna get into the ring and risk being one of the people torn apart. But if you can get into the ring and be rooted and not sit on the sideline, because sitting on the sideline, nothing gets done. Getting into the ring, you expose yourself. But if you can make that decision, the courageous decision, I'm gonna get into the ring, but then I'm gonna hold true to who I am. I mean, you set yourself apart. So the interview with The Rock, he talked about, he said something powerful, and I'll share. I'm gonna go ahead and just share the video, and then we'll talk about it.
I was really determined, hopefully, to have a career that had longevity, and I was willing to put in the work and commit. But what I realized at that time was there was a lot of naysayers and there was a lot of cynicism as I was getting into Hollywood. And I get it, because you were successful in another place and now Hollywood comes knocking and now you want to try and come in and make a name for yourself in Hollywood. It was a little tricky because I was coming out of the world of professional wrestling. It's just a unique animal at that time. And machine. So when I got there, a lot of people around me at that time who were my part of my management team said, listen, if you really want to make it in Hollywood, and even those who weren't part of my team, now looking back, I could see the chess that they were trying to play back then. They said, if you really want to make it in Hollywood, then you can't call yourself The Rock. You got to lose weight. Don't talk about wrestling. You have to look and walk and talk and act like these guys, and these guys are the biggest stars in the world at that time. Johnny Depp, Will Smith, etc. If you don't know any better, you buy into that stuff, like I bought into that back then. But then you start to realize something starts to eat at your gut about, well, this just doesn't feel right because I'm not being authentic, I'm not being myself. So finally, I said, a few years later, I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to be myself. Had a big meeting at the agency. I said, I'd like to have the same career as these guys, only bigger and different, and I mean it respectfully. And they all looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I have a big enough head as it is. So they looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I said, listen, just because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means we got to figure out a different path. So ultimately, I wound up saying, look, The Rock is a pretty cool name, and I love wrestling, and I'm also proud of where I came from this world of pro wrestling, where it's my dad and my grandfather, and I have a lot of family in pro wrestling. And then this unique thing happened when I was myself, and we can apply it to all of us here, business, life, etc., is Hollywood conformed.
Hollywood conformed?
Conformed.
To you?
To me when I became authentic and when I became myself. And then I went, I got it.
At this phase,
yes.
Close your thought, finish your thought.
Yeah.
At this phase, how much leverage, power, credibility do you have where they know they can't screw with you because you're going to do it no matter what? Do you have that kind of leverage yet or not yet?
Not at this moment, but they felt the passion and they felt a little bit of momentum. I feel like there's a word that I use, it's called mana, and it comes from in here. It's like chi, it's like a power, like you could feel it when we walked out and we all came in here, like you could feel the mana in the room. And I think they felt that at that time. And at that time, I had not had the credibility of any box office big hits or anything like that, but I did have what I felt clarity and how important that was. I'm not these guys. I'm not a Johnny Depp. I'm not a Will Smith. I'm not a George Clooney, those guys who were big stars at that time. I'm me, and the most important thing I could be is authentic and be myself, and Hollywood then conformed.
So, absolutely.
Oh man, every time I see that, it just gives me chills, man. It's definitely resonates, man. And there's a second part he said with it, which I was really appreciative of him saying, where he's like, you think, I'll play it, but he says, you think, you'd like to say that you are so much stronger than this, or that this is, this is how you're wired. But he's like, we're emotional beings, and, he's like, I fell into that, into that trap.
You're like, I feel like I'm in a cage. I don't want to be in a place like this. I know who I am. I'm going to go out there and show it to the world. Was it that kind of a moment you had?
Yes. You'd like to be able to say, I'm wired that way, and we're all wired that way. But the truth is, we're human beings with big emotions and big swings that we take, ups and downs. And there was a moment where I did conform to the idea that, I shouldn't go to the gym as much, and I need to lose weight, and I started getting insecure. I mean, yeah, imagine that. And in terms of Hollywood, right, where they said, you have to be like this, and don't call yourself The Rock, and don't talk about wrestling. And I thought, God, none of that felt right. So I did conform for a few years until I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
And that, the reason why that resonates with me, because I've gone through the same experience, and I'm like, I played basketball, professionally, and then I come back home, and I get introduced to the world of not just business, not just finance, insurance, and all this different stuff, but then also the way the business is done, right? So, if you're somebody looking to get into business, you have options, right? You have, hey, I can create something, a creative idea, or invent something and it blows up, right? Or maybe you just, you sell t-shirts, you get into the fashion line or ties or whatever. Maybe, for me at the time I was doing video production, right? So if you see my page back in the day, I was doing video editing. I had my, the vlog that I was starting. I was working at a creative marketing agency, doing a lot of different things through video, storytelling, all this different stuff. And, I started buying this idea, like, I'm not gonna be able to do this without a certain amount of money. And so working, and I get introduced to finance. I'm like, this is a good way to get some money to be able to do the things I wanna do. And so that's how I had started business. But there's franchising, right? So if you're working, let's say you're working in tech and you're making a decent amount of money, you're saving up, and you're like, I want to start a business. I want to get out of my job. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to start a business. By the way, you don't have to get out of your job. A lot of people have worked their careers, built an incredible life, and that's the life that they've chosen. You build an incredible life. Some people work for a company like NVIDIA. Millionaires built over, so many millionaires coming from NVIDIA. I think 1,000 millionaires were built at Facebook at the time of its IPO, right? One thing I've learned is everyone has their lane. You just got to choose the one that's yours. And so you have that option, right? And let's say you're saving up and you say, well, I don't have an idea yet, but I do want to build a business. So I have this capital. What do I do? And you can go buy a franchise, right? So franchising, $500,000 for a Taco Bell, $1 to $2 million for a McDonald's. I mean, there's all these different options, right? That's another way. The way that at the time, I didn't have any money. I guess I wasn't, patient enough to see, like a media business or whatever, not making any money, all this different stuff. And I saw an opportunity to get into, insurance, like, oh, that's the money I can make. And then the way it was, the business model though was network marketing. And so network marketing is like kind of buying a franchise, but yet you don't have franchise money. So it's like a couple $100, but your marketing, you get access to, like with the franchise McDonald's, you get access to the systems, you get access to the name brand and all this different stuff. Same with network marketing, you get access to their systems. All right, my phone died and I was rushing because I was supposed to have an appointment. Phone died. I'm like, the devil doesn't want this message to get out, right? And then the appointment I was supposed to have canceled. And I'm like, look at that. I got some more time. So now I can like slow down and we can talk about this a bit. But I was saying, so I end up not just financial services, not just insurance and all this different stuff in business, but then also network marketing as well. And again, you've got different ways businesses are done, and this becomes one, again, somebody who doesn't have the money to open up a franchise. They may not have like a crazy idea that's going to blow up. But they have like the hunger to want to build, right? To want to build something. And so instead of investing $1 million into McDonald's, it's like a couple $100 typically into a company that has a system. So similar concept where with McDonald's, why are you investing $1 million? Because they have a system you don't. So you're leveraging their system to grow something that's gonna return you value as well. It's all business, by the way, is always a mutual benefit. So when it comes to like network marketing, there's a system that you can leverage. There's a training system that's going to teach you certain concepts and all that different stuff. And at the time, I was doing media, like videos. I was recording videos for people. I didn't have any, systems. I didn't have any, like my networking skills. I wasn't meeting a lot of people and connecting. Just mindset wasn't there yet. Like the fortitude required to build something. At the time, I just didn't have the capacity I do now. And so I'm like, okay, cool, there's an opportunity here. I'll be able to learn more about money and finances. I'll be able to understand, learn more about marketing. I'll be able to learn more about leadership. And I didn't know the animal or the beast, which was network marketing, right? And so the reason why this video resonates so much with me, for the video from The Rock, sorry, it was like, I ended up, the appointment canceled and I got a phone call, and this is like now 15 minutes later. So I'm kind of like trying to get back to the video that was shown. But the reason it resonates with what The Rock said is, so at the time, I have no idea the beast, which is the insurance industry, financial services in general, network marketing, business in general, right? And this happens in every, The Rock talked about Hollywood and to animal or wrestling. You look at politics. Politics is a beast, right? Like these are all arenas or industries or whatever you want to call them that a lot of people get into and get spit out, right? I think at the beginning of this, I may have brought up Diddy. No Diddy, right? No. No. Crazy, man. But you look at the music industry. The music industry, you got young people, they're so pure, they're so innocent, they have such a good talent. Then they get into the music industry and like 5-6 years later, you're like, who is this? Like, what in the darkness? Right? Like, it's just crazy. So here becomes, I think, a really big test, right? And this is something like, I'll be honest, like even, okay, so my lady, Miss Abriana, she did a pageant. Miss Maryland, she did a pageant. And my niece went to go watch. I'm just being very honest. Part of me is a little hesitant because like I don't want my niece to go watch and fall in love with this pageant stuff and makeup and stuff. And why? Because I'm like, cause that world is an animal. And you realize that, and I don't have any kids yet, but I can now understand why, if you're a parent and you have a child and that child desires to do something, to be great in something, but you know that world is an animal, because you love that innocent kid so much, you're like, like the music industry. Imagine you have a kid and they're one of the best singers in the world. You're like, man, I do not want this person to go into the music industry because that industry is gonna freaking tear them apart, right? And that's because you truly love that person and you're trying to protect them. I think the challenge becomes, it also would come from a worry that that child's not rooted or grounded enough, and that they won't be ready for the battle or the war that they're about to go into, right? And so, like The Rock's talking about, he said he was in Hollywood and they're saying, hey, you got to be like this person, you got to be like Will Smith, you got to be like all these different people. He says, oh, you got to be like these different people. Oh, he says, which I loved. Towards the end of the interview, he said, you like to think that you're that person that you would never, I would never, conform my values and principles and all this different stuff. I would never, lose sight of who I am. But we also know that no one's perfect. And so he talked about at the beginning of his career that he folded, that, hey, you got to be like this person. So he started acting different. He started acting like someone that he wasn't. And I posted something on my story today that I heard on Instagram. It said, when you try to run someone else's race, it always ends in burnout, right? Like you end up depleted when you're trying to run someone else's race. So, Brock talked about it there. He's like, it's just nasty. You end up like, you feel like you're not yourself. And like, I went through that 100%, going into the world of, like I said, business, finance. Let's go. Let's make it, let's compound the craziness. Business, crazy. Finance, even crazier. Insurance, even crazier. Throw on network marketing, even crazier. The amount of pressure for someone to start to try to act like someone they're not. The amount of pressure to be like these other leaders in, the companies that you're a part of, or the pressure to not do right by a client because it's gonna pay you more, right? Pressure, and a lot of people fold to that pressure. And then they leave. They're like, I can't handle this never again. And I'll be honest, I just miss the truth. I got into a place where my business started winning. And the reason when I first got started was why? Because I really thought that there was information about financial literacy, and it's not about making money, but it's about protecting. Well, it's about both. It's about making money and then holding on to the money you make, and that the average family loses wealth in the third generation. Why is that? Because they give their family money, but they don't give them the values, the principles, the habits, all this different stuff. Like, that's important. And so I'm like, this is important stuff. People need to hear this, and I'm excited. And then it becomes, it's so subtle, without even realizing it becomes, I'm on the top of the leaders board. I'm the #1 director in a company of 30,000 licensed agents. I'm on stage. I'm speaking on stage. People are celebrating me. I go to events and people know who I am. I walk into a hotel and someone's like, hey, you're Greg Brown. Hey, man, I saw this. Hey, man, they're asking me questions. I'm like, this makes me feel like when I was down in Brazil and I was playing basketball and these kids were, asking me for the autographs. But these are grown people. These are people older than me with kids my age asking me questions. I had a guy come to me at an event and he says, hey, my daughter watched your Instagram live. And what did he say? She was hesitant to become an entrepreneur. She watched your live and she's since found the courage to take a leap of faith, and their business is blowing up. And I'm like, and so at first you have this humility, but then it turns to flattery, and before you know it, you start to build up this arrogance and it's building up your ego, and you're like, man, I'm so freaking good. And now, if you go through a season where things get hard, you have to put on this show. You got to protect the ego that got built up by, and it was genuine. It was people really trying to, offer you, give you your flowers. They weren't being sinister by it. And if you're not careful, you will fall victim to this identity crisis where you try to become someone you're not. You're trying to hold up your success now, and like if something happens, and then maybe you might get to a point where you may tell a white lie because you're like, nah, if I admit that I'm not everything that these people think I am, what's that gonna do, right? And then you're trying to act like you're someone that you're not, and hey, maybe you're watching this and you've never gone through this because you're just like, hey man, you're 10 toes down. You would never fall into that trap. You'd never fall into the pressures of the external world. And I guess I can't relate because I did. And what happens, right? They say pride comes before the fall. And so I had experienced some really high highs in my business. And then as it started to fill up my head, I fell off the face of the planet and I started experiencing some really low lows. And I got faced with a really tough decision, which was, do I leave this space, this industry, this line of work, all this different stuff, because it is an animal and it'll tear you apart. Just like Hollywood will tear you apart, just like politics will tear you apart. It will, you look at some of these presidents and stuff, and you could tell, like, or people running for president, or people running for, it's like, it feels like they're not doing this genuinely for people. They're doing this because they want to win a seat, or they want to win, this election. They're not, it's like, it's there's a different motive, right? And that's what these arenas will do. And then it's a big if you don't have a rock solid foundation, values, principles, not being true to who you are. And they say, there was these studies done. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. There's a book called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, and he talks about these studies that were done where, people were put in a room and they would measure the energy waves, right? Because everything is energy. The light, from this video is energy. The sound from my voice, there's sound waves, right? The way, the radio works and all this different stuff, and we all emit energy, right? Whether it be, the sun, if you ever walked into a room and you feel like, man, this energy's off a little bit, right? Like The Rock talked about, he calls it, I forget what he called it, but energy is a real thing. I personally believe that energy is I don't want to get too deep into this, man, but it's just proof, like science is just proof that God truly does exist. And if you don't believe, anyways, this is neither here nor there. We'll talk, we can talk offline, but I say all this to say that, that energy is real, right? So in the book, and I've seen, I've done some other research, you talk about that there's different emotions that emit certain frequencies, right? So like shame and guilt and selfishness and all this different stuff, it's a lower frequency. It's they talk about vibration. There's a lower vibration and all this different stuff, right? In that the highest frequencies known to man would be love, right? You look at like Nelson Mandela, and you look at Gandhi and some of the movements that they moved. I mean, shoot, if you look at Salvador right now, what's happening with Bukele. There's so many leaders that you see throughout the world that their messages are evergreen and they're abundant and they're led with love. And there's other leaders where they lead with fear and they lead with anger and shame, right? And those regimes never last the test of time, right? And so you talk about love and compassion, and then even truth is an extremely high frequency, right? And what I've learned is that there's an energy that is the highest of high, right? Like just it's the most attractive energy in the world. It's the most transformative, and it's very simple. It's authenticity. It's just being yourself. I saw something recently that said when you try to be somebody else, the reason it doesn't work is because their place is already taken, and that you have a unique disposition, you have a unique wiring, you have a unique story that's unique to you, and that no one else will ever have, and you will never have someone else's story, right? And so there's a void in the world that you were created to fill. And if you are just not your authentic self, things don't move the way they're supposed to. But when you're yourself, I heard somebody say, hey, the best way I could teach people how to change the world is just to get out of the way. Meaning, don't just hide. Meaning, get out of the way. Meaning, get out of your own way. Like, stop trying to do things based off of what you think you should be doing, or you're obligated to do, or I gotta do it because it's supposed to be done this way. And just be who you are, man. Just be who you've been called to be. And so anyways, I thought it was really powerful, man. And when the Rock talked about that, like, hey, he got to a point where he said, you know what, I'm gonna be authentic, I'm gonna be myself. I refuse to ever again conform to the world. I am gonna be myself and stand on that. And he said the moment he did, Hollywood conformed to him, right? It's just powerful, man. And I've seen it in my own life, that when you truly choose to be yourself, to not try to be like anybody else, you truly choose to stand on what you know is right. Just do right by people. Be a good person. Be honest. And then also too, like if you get introduced to, there's an opportunity out there for you, or there's to take this class or to take this, and you feel fear, right? It's like, again, get out of the way, step into it, because that's, I remember when I went down to Brazil, I was really nervous to do it. And I remember somebody said, hey, if you're not nervous about things that you're doing in your life, that may mean that you're like really not like pursuing anything greater than yourself. Because when you're super comfortable, like, like, hey, this is normal, it's not stretching you. But if you have something that's in your life that you're like a little nervous about, that's a sign that it could be a sign you're called to that space. So you have to have the courage to be to be yourself and step in, even if it challenges you to grow. It doesn't mean change who you are. One of the big things about like the world of personal development, right? And even, let's just keep it real, in the network marketing space, you've got personal development, reading, if you're familiar with Jim Rohn and all these different people. And reading is really important because it exposes you to new levels of thinking. It exposes you to new perspectives and paradigms. And, if you grew up in this fish tank, right, which is the way that you think, right, or the way that your family thought or whatever, if you've never been exposed to a different level of thinking, it's very hard for you to see the world from a different perspective, right? So, they say that, you'll never solve a problem at the same level of consciousness at which it was created, right? So if I've never known, if I have a view on the world that I'm like, I think that, Asians are racist, I don't know. And I just believe that Asians are racist. They're not racist. I either gotta meet an Asian, right? I have to, seek a different, deeper level of understanding within myself and really process, does that even make sense? Where did I learn that from? Maybe I do some journaling, or maybe I read a book from someone who's Asian, or see some content, or see something from someone who's Asian, and I realize, oh wait, this guy seems legit. Like, he actually cares about people. And it's like, paradigm shift. Somebody taught you that because of their trauma or their pain or something they experienced, but they did not teach you the truth, right? And so, anyways, yeah, just really powerful, man, really powerful. And whether you're, maybe you're at, in a career, maybe you're in a career right now, and they're telling you that you have to do something that is not integrous, or you have to do something that drops your dignity. And it's like, take it or leave it, right? And they're trying to instill fear in you, right? And they're saying, hey, you have to do this because we said so, and we have something over you, whether it be, we saw with all the Diddy stuff, right? Just like we have what's it called, blackmail, or I've seen people, they're in a career and the career pays very well, and that's the only option that they have for income. And so the employer is telling them to do things that they just know is not who they are, but they have to keep the paycheck. A human being, no one can take a human being's power. A human being can only relinquish it. I know you guys watching or listening to this may think this is crazy, but I'm gonna bring up Kanye West. I understand, just bear with me. He did say something once. He said that we are living in modern day slavery, and that something along the lines of, we've chosen to be enslaved. I know that one's tough, man. There's a book, it says 13 things mentally strong people don't do, and one of them is to give away their power. And my dad had told me this story because I think someone called me the N-word when I was in middle school, and I was really upset. And he told me a story, and it's basically this idea that, like, imagine somebody said something to you and you're mad at them. And then, every 5 years it comes up, you're just like, man, this freaking guy, yeah. And he told a story of somebody in his family who would tell this story. You could tell he would visibly get like upset every time he told the story. And eventually you get to this idea and you ask the question, okay, that person who hurt you, are they still alive, right? Let's say it's been 60 years. And the answer could be no. And so the concept was, so this person who hurt you 60 years ago could be dead, and yet you're still upset. So it's almost as if they're controlling you from the grave. And the lesson I learned from my dad in that is the whole idea. If you ever heard the concept, they say resentment is sipping poison, hoping the other person will die. That when you allow yourself to get angry, consumed in frustration because of what people do or say to you, what you've officially done is offer them control over you, right? Hey man, whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you're Kamala or Trump, whether you're right or left, let's bring up, it could be Kamala Harris. Maybe she said some stuff you don't like. Let's say Donald Trump. Let's be real. I would say the most polarizing of the two would be Donald Trump, like how, you know, he's pretty out there and stuff like that. I know people of all colors, walks, and all that stuff. Let's just say I know people in the black community that they see Donald Trump's face on TV. There's this like my skin boils when I see this man. Why? Because because if I feel like someone has attacked me and I feel like someone said things about me, so my skin boils. And here's the thing: whether you feel like he's attacked you or not, whether you agree with what he said or not, if your skin boils because you see him, you have given him control over you. And that's a tough pill to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow, and I don't, and I understand why it's tough. And it's tough for me to. It was tough for me to swallow the pill of if I buy into a belief system that goes against my values and principles, it's not. If I say, well, this person taught me that's their fault. If I do that, or if somebody hurts me, or if I felt like somebody manipulated me, or somebody did something against me, or whatever, I have two choices. I either choose, man, they're trying to hurt me, or like, hey, that system's oppressing me, or that person's trying to manipulate me, or I can say that, right? You see it with people that go to church, and there's a pastor that does something. It's like, well, that person hurt me, and I can choose that. Or I could choose, well, let's say I could choose that. When I choose that, though, I choose to put the power of my peace, health, clarity, like just life, and I choose to put the power of that into someone else's hands. So now my freedom and my peace is in the control of someone else, and I just don't agree with that. If like there was a time in our country where people are in bondage and shackles and like physically cannot choose to move or they're killed. That's physical bondage. I think what's way more sinister is to be physically free, but mentally in bondage. And mentally you have the choice to be free, but we're too afraid to be free, right? Because like the idea of like I don't know if it was like the allegory of the cave or whatever it can be, like, the idea that, or like of the elephant, for example, right? The elephant is a little elephant and it's tied to a tree trunk, right? And it's tied to a tree trunk as a little elephant, so it can't break free. And as it gets bigger, and then they remove the rope or whatever it is, but the elephant never tries to walk away because it's been conditioned that it can't break free from this tree, whether the shackles are there or not, right? And so there has been a lot of conditioning done in the country that we live in, but I do believe that there's a rise of people that are mentally free, that are offering value. That's the one thing about like YouTube and podcasts and stuff that I think are so powerful, is that there are pockets in the world of people who have broken free from that mental bondage, and are sharing their message to the world in hopes that someone will hear and get confronted with this truth that the bondage that we're in, we don't have to be in. And choose courage to get free, right? Because, let's just keep it real, man. Like, if you're a slave your entire life and the only way you know how to eat is at the plantation that you're in, and then the master says, hey, you're free to go, and you have a decision to make. Right? I saw the Harriet Tubman movie. It was so powerful, but you actually have a real decision to make, and it's actually a tough decision. The tough decision is what? Okay, I can go out there and risk my life, and I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to do any of this different stuff. So I had the choice to be free, but to be free, man, I'm gonna have to learn how to hunt. I'm gonna have to risk being shot at. I gotta risk my life to be free. Or I could stay here. I know this, the person, I know that I'm a prisoner of this person, but at least I know I can eat. I have safety. They're not gonna kill me, or at least I don't think they will, from what I've seen their track record. It's comfortable. I know what's gonna happen. I think I was naive in one season of my life to think that is such an easy choice. Why the hell wouldn't you do? What, you're gonna choose to be bound up? You're just gonna choose to be a slave? That doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. It's because I lacked wisdom. I didn't understand. I didn't understand that if you it's a tough decision. That choosing freedom means you may be risking your life. And I guess the question just becomes, is it worth it? And I've seen time and time again, and just looking back through history, that it's maybe it's a little more heavy than I thought, but it's real, man. And that's something I'm choosing to be for the rest of my life, man. Is myself, is authentic, is real. But I truly believe that freedom of thought, of spiritual freedom, mental freedom, physical freedom, I believe that is the ultimate form of living, and that anything less than that isn't even life, So anyways, like I said, man, really powerful what's this thing called, interview with The Rock. Didn't know where this would go, like I said, but yeah, I guess it's food for thought. I think it's really, really important, and I think in one season I had chosen freedom, and I'm like, I'll risk it, but I didn't understand the implications and why it was so heavy. I thought it was, why it was so heavy for some people, in that it is heavy and it's real and there's no getting around it. However, I do believe that when you do choose courage, when you do choose truth, we can take something that's heavy and carry it lightly, because it's not strictly our burden alone. And I believe that's where my faith comes in. I believe that's where understanding who I am, and understanding my faith. Let's just say that, just understanding how the world was created, and understanding why it was created, understanding my purpose. I think it allows me to carry the burden of choosing freedom lightly, because the burden is not mine. The burden is not yours either. If you're watching this, the burden is not yours. Or if you're listening to this, the burden's not yours. I wasn't the one that created this earth, and so my job is just to it's just to be an open door and window and vessel for that creative power and source to flow through me, right? And so, anyways, we'll maybe we'll dive deeper into this. Like I said, I just started this. I'm like, I'm gonna just share. I'm gonna just be me. I'm gonna turn on the camera. I'm gonna turn on a microphone, and I'm gonna just start sharing some of the things that are deep within this well of mine to the world. And I believe that I hope what's helped set me free will help set some of those of you guys watching and listening free as well. So with that being said, I think this is episode 4 on Return to Favor podcast, and we'll be back when we're back. Here's the thing, y'all. By the way, I don't know. I don't have we're doing this monthly, we're doing this week. So you may catch 2 in a week, and you may catch one, and then you may not catch another one for another year. I'm just letting this thing flow the way it's supposed to, man. And I think that's how life is supposed to be. So anyways, we'll catch you guys when we catch you guys. Take care. All right, so I'm actually throwing this in here because I had stopped recording, and I think I may have missed this point that came up right after, which I think is important. That once you get into the arena and you realize the arena can eat you up and spit you out, most people, they get in not knowing, they get eaten up, get spit out, whatever, and then they say, I'm never getting into that arena again. And I think that's the ultimate travesty, because once you know that it's a beast, or that it's an animal and it's a machine, you have a choice. You run away from it or you transcend it. So the music industry, you could say, okay, like with my niece, I think that's what I was explaining that before it kicked out. I was like, Adriana did the pageant and my niece is watching. I'm like, I'm afraid that she were to do something like that. Man, it's a beast, man, right? The music industry, a really good singer. No, let's keep this person. Let's never send them into the music industry. Well, now they sit on the sideline and they impact nobody, right? So it's either sit on a sideline and no one will ever hear your music, enter the industry and risk getting eaten alive, or enter the industry rooted with a rock solid foundation of who you are, a perspective of authenticity, knowing of who you are, so clear on that you actually transcend the industry. And what you do is you create a precedent, a safe space in the industry where the next wave of people that walk into that arena, that lion's den, so to speak, you can create a path, a safe path to say, hey, yes, this is a lion's den, but if you do it this way, I'm telling you, if you do it this way, you'll be able to excel, exceed, transcend, and keep your dignity along the way. And I think that's a really powerful, you become a really powerful just example for all the people to follow within that space. So anyways, wanted to make sure I did not miss out on sharing that, because it came up as I had finished up the recording. But again, like I said, we will see you when we see you. Take care.